You should ask Kezia Sardina, who's an artist that sets up at my show every year. That was her show. Okay. Kezia's a nice girl. Her father and her were going to put on a convention. And I say this now, 7 years later. So here's what happened with Hollicon. I announced Anime Supercon for November of 2007. You know how you find out that there's another show? You find out by going to animecons.com, conventions.com, convention blog. Back then there were different ones that don't exist now. But there's all these convention websites that have listings of shows, or if there's a previous existing show, you just have it on a list, that show's happening. I really like Southern Fandom Resource Guide. They're really good at finding every little nook and cranny show. So there had been no public announcement of Hollicon. They didn't have a date, they didn't have a guest, they didn't have anything. I announced Anime Supercon. I signed a contract with a hotel. I start promoting. It comes out that these kids are going to do Hollicon. So I talked to them. I talked to the dad, and I said, "Hey, this is a screwed up situation. I don't want to hurt you, but I'm doing a show. We had 2,600 people to Supercon in June. There was no reason not to think we were going to have at least 2,000 people to what we were doing. Hollicon was never meant to be more than a couple hundred kids. So I said, hey, what can we do to work together?" And you should ask Kezia how she remembers it, because it was her show. And she sets up at my show as an artist. So I don't think that there's any ill will. So I said to the dad, I go, hey, what can we do? And I suggested, well, why don't you move to Hollicon dates the week after mine, or 2 weeks after, come to my show, promote the hell out of Hollicon, because they were trying to do a charity thing, which is cool. And I said, come promote at my show, collect money for your charity, collect for your show, run a track of programming, and I'll help you promote Hollicon, and we'll get you more people and more money than you would have gotten on your own. And it just never happened. They just never did the show. Now, why they never did the show, I don't know. But there's no reason why they couldn't have done it another time. Nobody knew that the show existed. How I found out, I think, was Mama Roshi was doing photos for me. I don't know if you remember Mama Roshi. And I said, hey, and he was doing photos for us, and then he said, oh, I can't. I have a previous obligation for this thing. And I said, what thing? And that's how it all came out, that there was a Hollicon. But I didn't know until after we had a contract, and they didn't have a show. They didn't have a website. They didn't have a MySpace page. What was talks. So you can't not do something based on somebody saying we're going to do something that doesn't exist yet. I mean, you have to understand that you can't just lay claim to. You can't cry foul. In this situation, it's why I can't cry foul that Shimmy Pod took November 23rd. Well, I was going to do that date. I have contracts on my desk from a building with that date on it. But then they announced. And then I had to change my dates. They did it first. Can I be annoyed? Sure. But it's not his fault. He didn't know. And I didn't know about Hollicon. And 7 years later, the girl who was behind Hollicon has been setting up my show for years, and I think we have a friendly relationship. So there are people that have blown things out of proportion, but that's the nature of the beast. People create rumors, people talk, people hear one thing and they say another. But they weren't there when I was on the phone with these people going, hey, how do we make this work? And there was no me putting Hollicon out of business, because there was no Hollicon. And to the contrary, I had offered to help them. Just like I help Hurricane, just like I help PopCon, just like I help Creator-Owned Expo, just like I help any other show that's friendly with me. Are you talking about Jason David Frank? Okay, you're talking about Jason David Frank. Jason did our show last year. He's a nice guy. We had a good time. He made a lot of money. People were happy to see him. Right after the show, he said, I'm coming back. I have emails back and forth with him. I have dozens of texts with him saying he's coming back. Okay? We did it on a handshake deal. Didn't need a contract. The guy was a cool guy. I'm a cool guy. I have emails saying he's coming. And if he breaks the contract, what am I going to do? Sue him? So he's coming. You might notice that in August, there was a picture of me and him at DragonCon sitting down, taking pictures together when I first put him up on the website because we were sitting at a table at DragonCon, which is when I posted him back on the site as a guest coming because that's when we made all the arrangements and made the deal. So he was going to come to the show. Austin St. John has not done American conventions in 8 years, 7 years, a long time. He's been over in the Middle East. He's been working as a paramedic, saving lives. Austin St. John is one of the guests that I get a ridiculous amount of requests for. Why don't you get off this? With Power Rangers, there's 3 guests that I would get requested. Jason David Frank, the Green Ranger, Austin St. John, the Red Ranger, and Amy Jo Johnson, the Pink Ranger. Why don't you have these people? I don't know Amy Jo Johnson because she hates doing conventions. She just did her first convention a few weeks ago in Ohio, I think, or Kentucky, and we talked to her after that, and we offered her the same amount of money. She turned us down. She doesn't want to do it. But Austin St. John is an interesting story. We wanted him. He was this out of the country. He loves the fans. He wants to see the fans. He wants to do conventions. So I get a phone call, and everyone knows that I've been trying to get Austin for years. All the agents. So I get a phone call from an agent going, if I can get you Austin, do you want him? Fuck yeah. Absolutely. This is what he needs. Okay. I said, book it. So we do a contract with Austin through this agent, and I sign Austin. I don't know about interpersonal drama between Power Rangers. It's not my thing. I'm not a Power Ranger fan. I'm almost 40. When Power Rangers came out in 1993, I was in college. I think people that were in the 8 to 14 year range during that time have great memories of that show. I think it was a little late for me. But I understand my audience, and I know that I have people that want to meet these people. So I book him. And then the agent that's booking Austin also books Walter and David, the original Blue and Black Rangers. So I'm like, we had them last year because we had those 3 guys. We had Jason, Walter, and David. I wasn't going to bring Walter and David back this year because we had them last year. No need to repeat. But now I've got Austin. The agent was like, well, I really want you to bring in Walter and David. And I'm like, well, I really don't want to. And he's like, well, think of it, it'll be the most amazing reunion. You'll have all 4, and now if we can just get Amy, we have the whole gang. Plus Richard Horvitz is Alpha 5. You can't get Trini, the Yellow Ranger, because she's dead. So book him. Within 2 hours of me booking him, I get a text from JDF. Pull me off the website, I'm not coming. Now, he pulled out of the show because he didn't want to do a show with Austin. It's that simple. Now, we went back and forth. We have texts, we have emails. We're texting to this day. He texted me 2 days ago. Everything's fine now. We're friendly. He wants to come back at some other point in time in the future. This is just not the right show for it. Am I upset that he canceled? Of course I am. I had fans that were expecting him to come. I spent a lot of money promoting his appearance. We made a big deal out of that David Frank was coming back, and I thought it was going to be awesome to have all 4 of them in a room so that Power Ranger fans could have this experience. He decided that he didn't want to be in a room with Austin because this feud that goes back 20 years. And I'm sure you've seen that online, or there have been posts on his page. There's all sorts of things. And I have to say something. So I said what I said publicly. Now, I noted, you know, you could call it passive aggressive if you want, but I'm trying to be somewhat professional, but somewhat, you know, this is screwed up. You know, my attendees, the fans, our community deserves better than getting embroiled in a 20-year-old feud in a 500 square foot convention center where I can have one guy on one side and one guy on another, and they're almost on the same zip code. So Jason wanted to be pulled off the side. I pulled him off the side, and he was angry for a few days, and he felt that I shouldn't have booked Austin. And I said, how do I not? So he pulled out of the show. Well, we're talking again. You know, we're friendly again. I have no animosity towards him anymore. I think it's screwed up. I think he should have done the show. I think that he's depriving the fans of an opportunity. I think he's depriving himself of making money. But I can't control his life. I think he was not completely honest when he posted on his Facebook page why he was pulling out. And that's his prerogative. But you gotta know that, I mean, it's kind of obvious, you know, that he gets removed from the website within like 2 hours of Austin being announced. You know, there's a thing. And you may notice that Austin's doing all these shows around the country, and Jason's doing all these shows around the country, and the two of them are not out at the same show together. Do you think that's by design, or do you think that's, you know, because there's some kind of goofy 20-year feud on Jason's part? Not Austin. Austin doesn't give a damn. Talk to Austin. Austin doesn't care. Austin will do whatever. He just wants to make the fans happy. And I think JDF wants to make his fans happy. But I don't think he wants to make his fans happy and be in the same room with Austin at the same time. So we get embroiled in a situation. And then the only way to solve it was I had two choices. I could cancel Austin and say, I'm sorry, you can't come to the show because I have to take care of Jason. Or I could say to Jason, all right, we don't need you. There's always problems. I got guests that you know, one of my guests is one of my good friends. He just officiated my wedding last weekend. You know, I've had, you know, because it's human nature. You have conflicts with people. Some people disagree with you. Some people think that you wrong them. Some people feel that sometimes I feel they wronged me. Some people have wronged the show. Yeah, there's always going to be. It's always going to be. There's people that are never going to do Spooky Empire again. There's people that are never going to do Chibi Pod again. There's people that are never Supercon again. There's people we would never invite back. There's people that we've had problems with that we've fixed those problems, and now they come back to the show. And I try to smooth things over. It may take a year or two or three. But I work hard to smooth over things, you know.